Hi, I'm Suzanne Castle, and this is the Thought Leader Thursday. I'm here today introducing you to another incredible leader, thinker, doer, and all-around amazing human who's going to help each of us think about our world a little bit differently than anyone else. From artists to teachers, from actors to moms, from the big names to the you didn't know about them till now names, my hope is that you will connect with a leader who helps you light up in your corner of this galaxy. This is the Thought Leader Thursday show. Hi, welcome back to the Thought Leader Thursday. My name is Suzanne Castle. I'm so glad that you're here to spend, about 20 minutes having your mind blown by amazing guests who look at the world a little bit differently than anyone else. Today we have an in-studio guest. I can't wait for you to meet her. But before we do, all right, we have a new producer. Ziggy is in the house. Welcome, Ziggy. I'm glad that you're here for this fun train. And today we're going to be sharing a lot about stories and confidence and what they have to do with each other. So I'd love to ask you, what is confidence to you, or what would be the definition of confidence?
I think to me, confidence is having the ability to try new things and, not be afraid to fail at them. I think that's what confidence means to me.
Absolutely tremendous. I love that. Thank you so much. And everybody be sure and type in below in the comments and say hi to Ziggy. We're so glad that he's here with us. But I want to be sure that you meet the amazing, gorgeous human who is sitting next to me in all of her fashionista self. Holy moly, Rebecca Dollinger is here. And she has her own show, Your Voice Matters podcast. We're going to talk about that a little bit, right?
Okay.
Right? And she speaks about inspiring, about confidence, about encouragement, and bringing all that together to really allow women to speak up about their stories, to speak out, to really stand in their power. And she wrote to me that she feels women need to learn to use their voice to celebrate themselves. And here at the Sparkle Factor, we're all about the celebration. Your Voice Matters goal, her show, is to help women realize that they really do have a voice in the boardroom, in organizations, and especially in their own personal lives. We just need to stop there because that is so very good. Now, here is her past. And we need a little drumbeat action happening here because she's an international fashion copywriter for the past 18 years. So she writes about gorgeous things that go on people's bodies, about models on runways, about how to look at fashion differently. And she uses now her writing platform to give voice to women who don't have a voice. So those that have had trauma, those that have been abused, those who have been culturally silenced, those that are oppressed. So she's using her own voice for great power and helping women collect their stories and live into that for strength, for fortitude, and faith. So what does she do in her part-time? She's on the American Business Women's Association. She's on the National Board of Directors. She's a district vice president. She's a trustee. She is obviously a mojo-making maven, and Rebecca is here. Holy cow, woman. I am so glad you're here.
Oh, welcome. Welcome. I'm glad to be in the studio
Yay.
today.
Yeah. It is so good to have you here. Thank you for making the time and being here.
Sure.
You look amazing.
Thank
That
you.
dress. You walked in and we were all like, oh, wow. Amazing. And of course, I knew that. So I really want to talk a little bit about fashion for a minute.
Okay.
My stylist will be really happy. Hi, Rose. But fashion is a lot about telling stories. And here's why I would say that. I think the color that you choose, we all know this is my signature color. I love teal and turquoise. It helps me feel better about myself just putting on that color. I know that there are certain things I wear when I'm feeling sad, when I really need to feel confident when I'm going somewhere. There are other things that I wear. When I'm kicking around on the dance floor still, there are things I wear. There are shoes I put on that just make me feel like $1 million. I think fashion helps us tell stories. So I would love for you to tell us a little bit about how you continue to play in the fashion copywriting space, but how you're also curating stories for women who haven't been able to tell a story.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I got into, when you're a brand new copywriter, you write everything. Right. And I realized if I went from a creative copywriting to a business, it took me actually 2 days to get my brain turned around.
Oh,
Yeah. But I realized, I wrote for one fashion designer, and I loved it. His stuff was beautiful. So my thought was, what I try to do is I try to paint visions in people's minds.
I love that.
So the thing happens is like when I go to write, everybody has memories, and you need to like, you know, just click those little memories out, and they're good memories, you know. Like if you describe a certain type of outfit and somebody's, you know, going across the dance floor and she's dressed like this, and that brings back a lot of memories. And women feel good about themselves. And the first thing I always tell people is, and I try to do it myself, is when you feel like you're having a bad day, go get dressed and put your makeup on.
That's right.
Because if you put your hair up and you don't feel like you're worth anything.
That's right.
So, and makeup does play, and you know, fixing your hair really does play a part in the way you feel about yourself.
You know, I love that. It was really interesting to me during COVID. I'm sure we've all seen the clips of people who accidentally stood up and they didn't have, you know, things on downstairs. And people were talking about, oh, I just have to dress from the waist up, et cetera, et cetera. But what I found is that I still needed to dress for success. I needed to dress like the person I wanted to show up. So I routinely, when I'm on a stage, I wear vintage prom dresses and glittery combat boots because that's what I like to wear. And I think for me, I would wear that even if nobody saw that all day, because I noticed I sat differently. My mind was present differently. I felt in the environment in which I wanted to play. So I think that's some of what your words do, is allow people access to, if this is what you want, here's one way to paint the picture. Now, how do you put that into your own life?
Right. And women shouldn't go dress for somebody else.
Correct.
They should actually dress for themselves. And I think a lot of times women have trouble because they always look at, you know, the magazine and this is not going to fit. It doesn't matter. Just go and wear what you want to wear.
That's right. That's exactly right. You know, we have a mutual friend in common. And when the first time that I met her, I wore a t-shirt and a tutu. And she was like, well, hi. Hello, here I am. Right. So I think it is. It's important to wear what helps you feel like you.
Yeah.
And I do think there's a lot of competing voices that tell women they can't do that, or you need to wear this because this is what's in. I know my daughter and I were just shopping recently, and she was like, I just can't. Everything is Little House on the Prairie, and that's just not me. And so I was like, well, let's find a store that is you. Like that's I think how you look from the inside out gets reflected when you walk differently into a room.
But that's a great lesson to teach your daughter, you know, because they've got so many pressures around them that now my daughter, she's like the same way, you know. I can see her come in and she's got combat boots on, or she does her funky style, you know, and at first I started to say something and my husband goes, no, you know, and I'm thinking that's just her.
That's right.
And then you have to leave it.
That's right.
You know, you want to like fix things.
Yeah.
As a mom, you want to fix things, and no.
That's right. Well, there are bigger battles in my house most days than what she decides to wear that day, right? That's what I would say. So, I mean, she's almost 18, so let's be real. Like, it's awesome or awful every day. So I think it's really interesting for me to have someone else who hosts their own show. So if you haven't already, I hope you check the show notes and check out her show and her links. It's amazing. And I think because you bring different energy into the studio, so thank you for driving over and being in the studio with me. And as a seasoned podcast host of your own show, why do you think speaking out to celebrate, that's something I picked up from the notes that you sent me, that it's important to speak out, it's important to celebrate. Why do you feel that is so crucial?
I think it's crucial because I felt like, maybe it's personal to me, because I felt like when I grew up in a big Catholic Polish family, right? And, you know, everybody talked loud, you know, and I have a very soft voice. So I felt like I got drowned out. So through the years, that can play a difference in your, occupations you get and the professions you get. So if I learned to speak up and speak out and stand in my power. And sometimes that's really tough to do. Yeah. But sometimes you just have to fake it till you make it.
Right.
Yeah. So Your Voice Matters came out. It's really funny how I got the show's name, because I was running for District 2 Vice President with the American Businesswomen Association. And this lady, Susan Hamilton, asked me, she says, well, just come on my show. And I says, oh, I don't know, a bit about being interviewed. And finally I went on, and I had a fabulous time. So anyway, it just snowballed from there, and it was all about. And my slogan for my campaign for running was "Your voice matters."
There you go.
Because women's voices sometimes get drowned out, or they feel like they have nothing to offer.
Right.
And that's sad, because I do.
Sad. It is sad. And I love how you're curating those stories to remind people, look, you have a seat at the table. Your perspective is important. How can I help you collect everything that's happened to you and push it towards a common good, a common cause, right?
Right.
So when you're doing your show, what kind of people are you featuring?
Oh, at first I featured a lot of women, and then men offer a certain I don't know. They offered the other side of the story.
Sure.
So to me, that was it kind of balanced things out. But the people I get are a lot of people I know.
Yes.
And they have stories that are really impactful, things they had gone through and survived,
right?
And things that they've learned. And that's the whole thing about, the trials and everything you go through and the happiness you go through in life. You just learn from those.
You do.
And to me, that's a joy, because I can see them, like when they first start off, they're nervous. And the next thing you know, I said, we're just having a cup of coffee.
Yes.
She goes, oh, okay, thank gosh.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And it's just like we're having a conversation here.
Right. And we talked about that. There's just big things in front of us here, and there's lights and all right, but it still is just a conversation. And I think to draw people into conversations is one of the great superpowers that you have. Because what you're doing is you're allowing people to look at their world in a new way, to claim that, let's say, and then to go, okay, I can be a product of what happened to me, or I can say these things happened to me, and now I'm choosing to be like this. I'm choosing to volunteer. I'm choosing to help others. I'm going to lift people up instead of tamping them down, which is so easy when you've been in trauma or you've been victimized. You also then usually can also perpetrate. And so we want to help people re-understand what's happened to them and use it for good, right?
Right. And I have a lot of guests like that. And I've had to write for people like that. And that's just, sometimes it can be heartbreaking, but once you get it all out on paper and everything, it's for good. I'll have to tell you that story in a little bit.
I would love that. Yeah. I would love that. So, all right. So we've danced a little bit about how you're supporting women endeavors, and you give a lot of your time away, right? I mean, a lot of your time away.
Yeah, right.
And you give your platform away a lot to support various organizations. And I'm just curious why you feel like that's a priority for you.
Well, for the grace of God, that could be me. A lot of times, and I think that women have a lot of talent that they don't know they have. And if you give them a platform, they'll find their voice. Yeah. And that actually instills confidence in them, and it actually instills, self-esteem. And there's a lot that comes out of that. Because I've seen women in the American Business Association, for example, or other organizations, that if I met them when they first were in a situation, and then 2 years later they're just beaming, right? They're just absolutely, and you wonder, what took place, and it was just, being useful, being giving of themselves and giving of their stories. Sometimes that's hard when something as tragic has happened to you, is to tell that story. But when you tell your story, you heal. That's right. And you can leave it behind and go on.
Right. I was talking to a group not too long ago, and I mentioned to them, I said, your story right now that you're going through, all those things that you think don't matter, is going to be a lifeline to someone else. You don't think so, but it will be a lifeline. They will be like, you did that and I can too, or you've been through this and look where you are. And so when we continue to tell our stories and share, even when it's hard, I think we are giving lifelines to people, which is so important.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've written for people that it has no voice. I mean, honestly, have no voice. They're either culturally, they just don't, they're silenced, or they've been abused. But once they, like you said, once they find there's an out and there's a beauty beyond all that, and set it aside and heal, they can go on.
I love that. Okay, so if there was one thing you wanted to share with everybody checking out this episode on how they can start telling their own story, what is one tip or trick that you would share with them?
You know what? I would start by looking in the mirror. Sometimes people cannot look in the mirror,
Right.
and just actually talk to the mirror and tell your story. What would you want to say? Because, they always say you give a couple of speeches. So when you give, and when you rehearse, and then the one you do, and the best one is the one you're driving home.
Right.
I should have said that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think they just need to practice first. To talk to themselves in the mirror, and that you think, well, that's not half bad,
Right.
So, and then just go on and this. If you're given an opportunity to stand up and say a few words, do that.
Yeah.
And it's real hard sometimes for people to actually, give their own opinion instead of someone else's opinion,
Yes.
because they sometimes feel like their opinion doesn't matter.
Right. Well, if that's what they've been told and that's all they've been shown, then why would they know anything different? Right?
And then when people get silent, when that happens, sometimes people will get real silence. And it's not that they didn't understand you. Maybe you gave them something to think about.
Correct. Yeah. I love that. I think that's a really good tip.
Yeah.
Okay, so we close every episode out. I ask the same question every time. I cannot wait to hear you tell us your definition of what it means to sparkle.
My definition to sparkle is to walk out of my house feeling like $1 million. But you have to feel like $1 million inside too. So you always have to be happy. And to me, sparkling is doing those things like with your husband or your boyfriend, or that you really, my husband's sitting here. So, to me, he's the love of my life. So together we really sparkle. But sparkling, that's something that comes from within. And I think it's having a good personality and a good conscience, I guess, and a good way you feel about yourself. You can't sparkle unless you feel good.
That's right.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad that you caught this episode. I know that you were elevated. I was too. Thanks to Rebecca. I hope you'll check out the show notes in the comments below. Be sure and find her show, put it on your replay so that you can be lifted up and know that your voice actually matters. I'm Suzanne, and this was the Thought Leader Thursday.